Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to another wonderful Tuesday here at the History Center. And welcome to LoFi History. So if you have never joined us before for LoFi History, I can't help but laugh at Glenn. I'll get to the explanation. We'll explain why Glenn's wearing that mask. But this is your opportunity to ask Glenn and Marie your history questions live. And so, if you're just joining us, we do this every Tuesday on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Ah, yes, and most importantly, we have a new donation goal this month. So we are going to try to make it to $250 this month. And a little special prize this time around. If you donate, and you can donate any amount, then you will be automatically entered into our raffle for a $15 gift certificate to our online museum shop.
And every time they donate, they get added to the raffle, right?
Yes, every time you donate, you get added to the raffle. So if you want to donate more than once, you will have even more chances to win. Now, Glenn, I don't want you to suffocate in that thing. So why don't we start today with what are you wearing, Glenn?
I'm fine. Well, someone a couple of weeks ago told me that I needed to up my game, so I thought I would up my game.
I think you succeeded.
Did I do it?
I think so.
I hope so. I am dressed as an Imperial German soldier in World War I on the Western Front who's just been attacked, probably by mustard gas or maybe phosgene or something fun like that. So I've put my mask on to protect myself.
All right, World War I German soldier. And Marie, tell us about your beautiful outfit.
Oh, thank you. I am wearing a spoon bonnet. You can tell because it kind of has like this nice spoon shape here. That was popular in the 1860s, usually more mid to later 1860s. And then I have an 1860s day dress, so nothing incredibly fancy, but also nothing that I'm going to go out and work in. It's just a nice day dress.
Nice, it's beautiful, and of course, I bet you made it.
I did.
Of course.
Excellent. So, we do have some questions from last week that we didn't have time to answer near the end, so I was going to start there. And of course, viewers, if you have a history question, please, all you have to do is chat your question, and we'll get right to it. Oh, and I see we do have some folks joining us. Excellent, excellent. So hello. Oh, we got some regulars. Oh, hello, Ethan.
Hi.
Ethan, who is 9, is in our homeschool connection class.
Yay.
Hey, Ethan. That's awesome to see you. So we'll get to Ethan's question. We also have Roxanne joining us, and Carol, and Jeannie. So thank you all for joining us.
Hello.
All right, so our first question we're gonna get to is from Cruiser last week that we didn't have time to answer, and I bet this one will be a good one for Glenn. Cruiser asks, what was the average age of a pilot during World War II?
Well, I can tell you that right away. Oh, as soon as I make it so I can breathe. Woo! There.
That feels a lot better.
I can breathe and I can see. I'll still put the helmet back on because helmets are fun. I gotta put these on, or otherwise it's not lo-fi. It's boring regular history without the sunglasses.
This is Ask a Historian. You have to differentiate.
That's right.
How old was the average pilot in World War II? Was that the question?
World War II.
Average pilot was probably in their mid to late 20s. You have to remember that folks sign up for the military. Let me take the United States for the main example. So they're signing up, right? They're wanting to do their bit, and there is a huge recruiting effort to get people to join the Air Forces, the Army Air Forces. And as a matter of fact, in some ways this is bad because what it does is everyone who joins the Army that they think might make a good potential airman, they siphon off into the Army Air Corps. So that's where a lot of your talent, your highly educated, the folks who show some initiative and some verve, get siphoned off into the Air Corps, which means that the really good officers and the really smart folks may not make it into the other branches. And you still have to have at least even though they had really sped up the training process for pilots, it's going to be at least 1.5 to 2 years before you are ready to take on an actual combat mission. So, if you sign up, say at 18, you're going to have to be an officer, so you're going to have to get some college. So that's 3 to 4 years, even in the 3 years, even in the accelerated program. Then you're going to have about 1.5 to 2 years of flight school. So even the youngest is still going to put you in the mid-20s. And that's what's interesting is these people like, say, American B-17 pilots and co-pilots with 8 other people. Well, if you're the pilot, you've got 9 other people on the plane with you, and you're 24 years old, 25 years old, and you're the old man in the crew, right? Because they're taking the sergeants and things like that are running the guns, that are the flight engineers, things like that, and you're the old man. You're suddenly placed in charge, and if you do pretty well and you survive some missions, you may be placed in command of like a 3-wing group, and suddenly you've got 30 men under your command and you're 26. It's very, very similar for the other air forces, for the Japanese, for the German, for the British. They're all these young men coming in. Now that's not to say that there weren't older pilots who had been around, since pre-war days and who had been sort of stifled in their respective air forces because the air forces were so small. There was very little chance of promotion. So you would have 30, 35-year-old men as first lieutenant. The later ones tended to be not nearly as big, not as well backed by the crowns of Europe or wherever they were coming from. And you have to remember, by this point, it's also important to remember that, let me back up. Let me do what you're talking about. Going on the assumption that we all know what a crusade is. A crusade was an effort by Western Christendom to free the Holy Land from the infidel who had invaded it and taken over, a lot of the cities holy to Christianity, Jerusalem and Bethlehem, and places like that. It had been predominantly Christian, those areas had been, until the rise of Islam, and Islam had gone through North Africa and around the Eastern Mediterranean, and for a variety of different reasons had become the dominant religion and therefore culture and political group. Now, there was much infighting within the forces of Islam, the nations of Islam, over a variety of different things. So don't think of when the West goes on crusade, don't think they're going on crusade against Muslims, because there are just as many factions in the East among the Islamic states as there are in the West. But these Western nation states decide they're going to go take it, and the first crusade in 1099 actually does take Jerusalem. That's the only successful crusade that does what it sets out to do. Jerusalem, after about 100 or so years, falls back into Muslim hands, and the subsequent series of crusades are efforts to retake Jerusalem. By the time you get to the 6th crusade, I'm going to bet that the forces that Frederick II could gather together and go east are probably not going to be strong enough to take on by this point, I think it's the Turks have taken over those areas, and they're just not going to be strong enough, because at this point, you're talking about the Ottomans, right? The Ottomans, this is when they're getting going, and they turn out to be a remarkably powerful political force. So the best thing he could probably accomplish was some sort of truce, allow Christians to come in Jerusalem on certain days, or, without making them promise they're not going to cause any trouble, things like that. That's what I would guess, based on the knowledge that I have.
Sounds like a good guest. Age 5 joining us.
Hello.
Anna and Athena. Thanks so much. If you have a question, feel free to chat it. What do you know about women getting the vote in other countries? Marie, I know that we've talked about
Britain suffrage movement and the American suffrage movement. They were gaining the vote around the same time. Britain had to be kind of a certain social class, and you had to be over 30, which was not the same voting rights as men had at the time, and it wasn't until a little bit later that it was extended to more women, where in the United States when the 19th Amendment was passed, it was pretty much passed to be equal with the men who were able to vote. So that also that happened all in like the 20s, 30s in Britain. And then the rest of the world, there was a large movement at this time for women to get rights, and there were other 1970s were giving women the right to vote. Some places in the world still today, I do not believe that women have the right to vote that is equal with like a man's right to vote. So I do not know specifically. I can't just read off a list that I have in my mind of the dates of when women got the right to vote in certain different countries. But it kind of goes with the waves of feminism that you have. You have first wave feminism, second wave countries giving women the right to vote.
Now, did this idea of suffrage for women originate in England, or was it sort of talked about at the same times in America and England?
So the first women's rights conventions in America was in the 1840s, and I do believe that was the first women's rights convention in either of the two countries. So America really got going farther back than Britain, but Britain kind of accomplished more in a shorter amount of time.
Got it, yeah.
They inspired each other back and forth.
Yes, and it sounds like it with what we learned at our family day recently, with the same colors that represented the suffrage movement, the suffrage sashes. So lots of great connections there. And Carol, if you're interested, if you check out our YouTube page, we actually have a great program from last year about the women's suffrage movement that goes into the United States and Britain, with interviews with Marie and Leslie Jones, our archivist and museum services manager. So,
and of course, well, I have to say too, as a man,
yes, yes,
throw it out as a historian, I have to mansplain things. Don't think that women didn't think they should have equal rights before Seneca Falls, right?
Of course.
They had been individually and in small groups agitating for this for quite some time. I mean, look at Abigail Adams, right? Remember that half the population, don't oppress half of the population the way you say Great Britain is oppressing you. Do something different, John.
And then you have Mary Wollstonecraft, Vindication of the Rights of Man, and then Mary Wollstonecraft is like, but what about literally half of your population? And then writes the Vindication of the Rights of Women in response.
Oh, I love it.
Take that.
Yeah. Thank you for your question, Carol, and it's good to see you. Let's see, Roxanne has a question, and it is, let's see, were the Regulators active in Georgia during the period leading to the Revolution?
No, they were not. The Regulator movement is prominent in North Carolina and to a lesser extent South Carolina in the backcountry, by which we mean, distance-wise, far away from the centers of economic and political. Citizens basically get together to regulate trade and law enforcement amongst themselves, which leads to a lot of different problems. And you have different movements, especially in North Carolina. There's a huge movement that gets more or less quashed at the Battle of Alamance shortly before the Revolutionary War, but it doesn't happen in Georgia, mostly because you have to remember Georgia is not that big in terms of population. The smallest colony of all 13. It's smaller than Rhode Island in terms of Western Europe did eventually, we're talking the medieval period, right? By the medieval period, they're well domesticated. And I think it's just another kind of meat. One of the things that was very common, especially in the New World, is a family could get, like you said, a couple of pigs loose. They're going to go out. They're going to be pigs in nature. They're going to have little piglet babies, and they'd be nice and fat. Comfy. Pork tends to. I'm sorry. No, it's okay.
Looks like we have an audio issue. 1 second.
Okay. I should have kept
Audio. Let's see. We got to give him a second.
Okay.
Let's see.
There's a lag.
Yeah. Oh, but all good now. Yay!
Yay!
The old off and on. All right. So, we'll go back to the bacon question.
Yeah. So pigs. Pork is one of the. So basically, pork animals tend to be very, very low maintenance. They can eat a lot of things that cows and other things for meat can't eat. For meat. That's why, and therefore the preservation methods, and it becomes more and more popular as the population of pigs explodes. Of course, they bring them into the New World, and what you need to, they're easily preserved. They're not gigantic either, right? And most pigs are kind of a manageable size. I'm no pig expert other than the consumption thereof, but I do know that the only real barbecue is pork. It is not a verb.
Also, it's not just cooking outside.
No.
Yes, and I also now I do see that on YouTube for some reason our visuals are working fine. So if you'd like to join us so you can watch, not sure what's wrong with YouTube, but alas.
I blame the internet.
Yes, that's too bad. Let's see. Let us know how the audio is. I don't know if that's an older comment or any good, any better. I mean, I'm gonna try, although I don't want to. I'm gonna try turning the music off.
Oh no.
So let's see.
Then it's just history.
Then it's just history.
I might as well take the sunglasses off at that point if we've got no music.
All right, let's see if this it is without the music today. I mean, I might try it a little bit later. We'll see. It probably. Thank you so much to Carol for your $10 donation.
Yes.
Awesome. All right, they're saying it's fixed now. So
Okay, good.
let's see about YouTube though. Seems like we're still green on YouTube. So YouTube folks, if you'd like to join on Facebook, that's probably the best way to go about it. Or you can also check us out on Twitch. I will put us on twitch.tv/LoFi_history. Now, I want to scroll back up to see what our next question was. So we had regulars, we had Ethan. Excellent. Anna would like to know what type of work you in such a beautiful hat, or was it for special days? Oh, what type of work would you do? So when would a woman of your time period wear this beautiful bonnet?
Yeah, so this is not a work bonnet. If you were going to have a work bonnet, that's going to be something like a sun bonnet or a slat bonnet. It's going to have a much longer, wider brim. And I have like a cute little curtain ruffle on the back of my bonnet here. That would be much longer if it were a slat bonnet or a sun bonnet or something that I was going to go and I'm going to go work outside in. It's going to be far more sun protection than fanciful. Side that you're going to have some type of head covering on, especially if you were older, if you were not a child. If you were more mature, you were going in the early 1800s and then kind of going to the mid-late 1800s, bonnets like this were incredibly popular. They changed style and shape for a wide variety of, each decade kind of had its own shape, if you will. The decade before this, they got lower, and then in the 1860s, they started to go up, and then they started to get really tiny. We're more in favor of hats with feathers. Lots of feathers on your hat, and that was really popular until you got to, well, when we stopped kind of wearing hats the feathers went away because there was a whole thing about killing too many birds and things. Anyway, that went away in the 20s. when the cloche hat, which was a very...
Sorry, I can't see it. That was Fleet Admiral Moore. Thank you, Fleet
Thank you,
Admiral
Fleet
Moore on
Admiral.
Twitch. Appreciate it.
So this type of bonnet is just going to be it's going to be for more nice occasions. If I were to go out visiting, which is the formal, we might go out to, well, we don't go out anywhere much these days. But in the church, usually you don't wear bonnets to dinner parties. You only wear these during the day. Once the sun goes down, then you don't have to have your head covered. You might have some pretty hair decoration going on, but it wouldn't be as much of a hat. This is really not good sun protection, but it is a little bit.
Sure does look good.
You would also have a parasol usually, and that would actually be the sun protection on your head. And they were popular in the 1860s for nice occasions, but not super fancy occasions.
Now by that point,
especially in this time period where you have flowers. Here, I haven't shown off the side.
That's right.
So you have these flowers.
Is that a raspberry?
Yes. Yeah, so you have flowers, you have the nice little ruffle on the inside here, and it would just be everywhere. Kind of like a bouquet on your head.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely frames
yes.
very, very portraiture kind of headgear.
Yes, and that would be very common. You don't really see many plain bonnets in this time period. Most of the time, they are highly decorated. Work bonnets, of course, are plain. They are not to look pretty. They're to keep you from getting them the Victorian way.
Ooh,
of wax flowers.
That's cool.
It's really cool.
That is really neat. Yeah. Well, beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I believe that was. Oh no, was that Anne? Anna? Yes. That was
Anna. Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much, Anna. All right, now guys, I'm gonna try to bring the music back. If it gets horribly, I'll give up. But let's just see if the internet is okay with some chill vibes. So our next question we have, let's see, is going to come from a question from Paris. So Paris has an interesting question. Paris would like to know, who was the first woman to get married? Which may be an unanswerable question, but maybe we could just talk about the traditional idea of marriage and perhaps how that came about. Or, I mean, this is a big question. So the idea of a contract of partnership.
a contracted socio. That's, I mean,
I would say so, yeah.
If you're going with Christianity, Judaism, or Islam, that would be Adam and Eve.
Ah, there you go.
But Adam and Eve did not have a religious officiator.
They didn't.
They had God himself.
They had the officiator.
I'm gonna need to see the certificate on that.
Oh my goodness,
we'll
yes.
Work on it.
Can you imagine their cute little ceremony with their little fig leaves and everything? So, I mean, but this custom or the cultural custom of being married to one person, I mean, I've always connected it because of my Western education to like a sort of Christian ideal or idea. But do y'all have are there differences with marriages in other ancient cultures? Like, what did the Greeks do?
Oh yes, absolutely. There are definitely they are. I mean, they are socio-economic. They are. They're meant to sort of channel biological energy, agricultural, in some way, form, or fashion. Now, of course, the agriculture varies between ancient Egypt and between ancient Greece, and between, as the basic building block of an I don't think I can think of a society, and this doesn't mean they didn't exist. It just means I can't remember one where of situations that I can think of.
In my head, there is a situation where that did happen once, but I can't think of the name.
Like one person or one culture?
Oh, it was just one person.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
it wasn't a whole culture.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
It happened. It was more singular.
Yeah, I'm thinking just broader.
That would be a fun topic to investigate, though, because I know that from the little bit that I do remember, I remember learning about other Native American tribes that had different structures to their family structure and the duties that we would, as you know, Western culture normally associate that with like domestic women's work type of stuff here. That'd be cool.
No,
so thank you, Paris, for at least the food for thought for a little bit of research and digging.
And you know, it's in. I don't want to belabor the point, but I'm also thinking of some Native American cultures. You know, how we're talking about the marriage unit, but how is that decided upon? Right?
Yeah.
That is what's really interesting when you look at the different cultures. For example, in many Native American tribes, it is 100% up to the female who she will marry, when she will marry, whether she will stay married. And you know, sometimes it's as easy as you are lazy and you are not my husband anymore. And as far as tribal law goes, interesting, you're right. There does seem to be a one, generally speaking, a one man, one woman situation, but how that situation works, how it is arrived at, how it is sanctioned, who sanctions it, if it's even sanctioned, is really the varying factor across, you know, millennia of different societies.
That's a good point. Right. Well, thank you for the food for thought.
Yes, that's those big questions tend to
Yes.
force us to think a little harder.
They are fun. Let's see. We also have David. David, thank you so much for your $15 donation.
Thank you, David.
Yes, thank you so much. And good to see you. David says, late again, I need an American clock. David's our viewer from Wales. Very cool. Amy Beecham, hi Mom, would like to know, what historical woman do you each admire the most and why? Oh, another big question. I have a feeling that it's going to be hard to say the most.
Just one.
Yeah, but who comes to mind? The person that comes to my mind, because we get to learn so much more about her during our webcasts when we talk about the Lewis and Clark expedition, is Sacagawea.
Yeah.
I mean, just with all of the factors involved in her story, she's quite young. I mean, what is she, like early 20s probably?
Which means she does part of the journey 8 or 9 months pregnant.
Yes. She's able to be such a significant asset and help to Lewis and Clark along the expedition, because she ends up being a better translator than her husband, who was originally hired to do the translation. And am I correct in thinking she also ended up saving some documents that otherwise might have been lost? There was a boating accident.
At some point in a boating accident, she like reaches, something gets knocked off the boat, and she like reaches over and like gets a couple of the boxes of the notes, right, of the actual journals that they had been writing on, and saved some of those.
Yeah, so I mean, and then she was also, am I correct in thinking that she was kidnapped as a child and taken to a whole other tribe? So she was separated from her family. We know she was at least separated from her, uniting with her brother, which is just fascinating. So I think there's, I think when people hear the name Sacagawea, they think she was along, she guided Lewis and Clark and pointed the way. And of course, that's a big part of it. But there's know very much about after the journey concludes. So she's someone that comes to mind for me, at least.
Yeah.
How about y'all? Marie's going through the list of. Ooh, Glenn's got one. What do you got, Glenn?
That's what I'll do.
What?
Since you put me on the spot, I'm going to choose Queen Elizabeth II.
The second. All right.
The second.
Tell us all about it. Why?
Because she has done something nearly impossible. Her reign has lasted for decades, the longest reigning monarch in English history, at least. She grew up, she was never meant to be the sovereign. It was supposed to be her uncle, but her uncle messed things up. So then her dad had to become king, and then at a very young age, she had to take this on too. She served her country in World War II, right? She was a mechanic. She was a mechanic in the army, so she's served her time in the military. Very obviously an independent woman, and she has had the wherewithal to keep one of the, I know they are rich and they are powerful, no question about that, the royal family, but she's also, they are incredibly unpopular, right? There is a world of change, major sea changes that have gone on in the last 50 years, social changes and empires have crumbled, and yet she has maintained with dignity the centrality of the royal family in British society and British government, to the point where even the people who hate the monarchy love Queen Elizabeth, right? And that's remarkable. And you know, I think you don't just do that by sitting in the back of a car and going like this. She has to work with that family, and she has to finagle all this through, and has had so many challenges, and she's held it together. And you know, full disclosure, perhaps inevitable passing of her, because she's done so much for it and for the country.
I think that's a good choice.
God save the Queen.
Yes. All right.
I say it in my German outfit.
Yeah, right.
It's so hard to pick one. I'll go with Queen Elizabeth I, since you did the second. Because she was very much an independent woman in a very male-dominated world, where she also was never supposed to be queen, and then literally she showed them that a girl can reign and be better at it.
Yeah.
When her dad died, he thought she was his greatest failure.
Yeah.
I mean, he thought she was
Right,
his greatest failure.
Not so much.
No, she also was able to hold England together in a very tumultuous time where we don't necessarily think about, as her sister, Bloody Mary, was able to attempt to keep the country.
I don't know why it helps, but I hope it does. Thank you, Karen. Thanks for letting us know. I hope that...
Not that she had that much to do with the Spain not invading, but she was given all the credit.
It's good to be the queen.
Yeah. So I think that she was, and she kind of refused to get married because she didn't want to share power. She also had great public imaging. Yeah. And kind of modeled herself into this Virgiana.
But then did she then not fail in one of the main duties of a sovereign?
Yes, to produce an heir. That was a big problem.
Whoops.
Yeah. Wait, so...
Also...
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Incredibly interesting thing about that.
Yeah, do tell.
So, James, the first successor, she had killed his mother, or had his mother executed, Mary Queen of Scots.
Yikes.
So a little bit of a family situation. And yes, if you go to Westminster Abbey, where a lot of the monarchs of the English throne are buried in the church, there's usually separate rooms where they have their great vaults. Elizabeth, who I would consider one of the best, greatest monarchs of England, does not have that magnificent of a burial chamber. They basically stuck her in with her sister Mary. And
the one she...
Yeah, the one that she... Oh, no, that was Mary...
Okay.
There's Bloody Mary, and then there's Mary Queen of Scots.
Okay.
Yes. So, she ended up with her sister Mary in the same kind of vault situation. Wow. It's kind of like a whole canopy bed.
To walk around it, because she is just kind of...
Yeah, you would expect her
squished
to be
in a royal closet.
And they were like, and well, we put these two together to signify the Anglican and the Catholics getting along.
No.
That was the nice...
James said, stick her in there, she killed mommy.
Yes, and then he gave his mother the most luxurious golden shrine thing that I thought was going to be Queen Elizabeth. Interesting, slightly petty.
Kill
royal
his mom.
family drama.
Yes. When the 19th Amendment was being voted on, was there a mother who had written a note to her congressman's son that convinced him to vote yes for the amendment? Not sure if this is a myth, but I read somewhere that this mother's note helped sway the vote.
It's a Tennessean.
He's Tennessee, though. It was when Tennessee was ratifying the 19th Amendment.
Oh.
But so it's not like it's not DC. They're down there doing the thing. It's actually in Tennessee.
God,
But it was Tennessee's ratification that actually
passed the 19th Amendment.
Oh, wow. But
You have to have so many states ratify it.
right.
So
Some states were already.
And Tennessee's the one that pushed it over the edge and made it the law.
That's so cool. What a neat little story.
In downtown Nashville, they had a whole thing. Some people call it the War of the Roses, even though that's an English kind of Civil War thing. But Tennessee decided that they also have one in Nashville during the 19th Amendment, and people would wear these different color roses to signify if they were pro-suffrage or anti-suffrage, and they all went down to Nashville, Tennessee, and there was the Hermitage Hotel where a lot of them met, and they were talking and trying to get people to sway their way or the other, and eventually there was one mother who wrote a note to her son.
Wow.
During that whole situation.
Karen's son who loves Disney and wants to know about who opened the first amusement park, like, big amusement park. Of course, there were parks, that might have like a carousel or something small early on, but that's the one that there are different kinds of parks. This is an amusement park, right? So there are rides and games. And they start off simple with a carousel, and then they build that crazy thing called a roller coaster. Yeah.
That's. If I was going to say, that was going to be my guess. If that's the first one.
Apparently, there was a park within New York's Coney Island, George C. Tillieu, and it says it was the first of 3 major amusement parks that put New York's Coney Island on the map. And if y'all would like to do a little extra research, there's a good article by history.com that has more information on the first on 6 early amusement parks, and I'll throw the shops and everything, the boats. Now I'm sure that the actual amusement. See about Coney Island's first roller coaster. It was called the Switchback Railway. Oh, that's cool. I mean, early 20th century people on a roller coaster. So let me throw this in there, make it a lot bigger. Whoops. Oh, so there they are. Look at that. That looks so fun. Would y'all ride that?
Yes.
Yes.
I would, but I'd wear this helmet.
Yes. So thank you, Karen's son, for your question. Now we only do have a few more minutes, so if we don't get to all of the questions, we will have them next week as well. Let's see. So, time period of fashion. So I think we all know who this goes to. Of course, Glenn, you can also have an opinion on this.
Well, I have an opinion, but it won't be the right one.
We have an expert. So Marie, do you have a favorite era of fashion?
I really like mid-Victorian because I love the big poofy skirts. I think that they are very fun and kind of, when we think quintessential princess-like, we think the big poofy skirts, and
proper.
there is Sybil Ludington, who...
Audio again, still bad. Aw. All right, I'll turn the music off. See if that helps at all. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3. Okay, it's good now. Yay!
Yay!
Man, I'll have to do some research on what causes that, but I'm gonna just keep the music off just in case. But Carol asked about women who did women ride on the Pony Express? Did they serve on the Susan wants to know, do you think Mary, Queen of Scots, really was plotting to kill Elizabeth I, or was Elizabeth correct to execute her? What's your opinion on that?
In the Game of Thrones, you win or you die.
For any Game of Thrones fans out there.
But I mean, that's also true, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's to secure your place on the throne and the power structure that supports you and the nation state that is the extension of your power.
Because does it matter if Mary herself was not planning to take the throne, but there were certainly other people who wanted Mary on the throne?
She was going to be their tool to do it.
Exactly. So even if she did not have an active part in planning it, there were definitely people behind it to have more power, save the soul of England in their minds. That's what they were doing, returning to the true faith. Who has a legitimate claim to the throne? Well, would it be easier just to not have that person there at all?
For more on this, see The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli.
Yeah, right.
But Queen Elizabeth also felt it weighed heavily on her if she should execute her cousin or not, because they're family. And she had also seen her father execute family members, almost been executed herself by her sister.
Mm-hmm.
So it was not something just done lightly. She thought through it. She also would come back down and think rationally. Right. Or to actually stop the execution, but they had already carried it out.
Ooh, wow.
That she did do that. My personal opinion.
The thing that they would do is they would royal theater, if you will.
Yeah.
Is because they were beaten at the last minute with a pardon and save the day.
Oh, wow.
So you never knew if that was actually going to happen or not.
It's drama.
Now, David mentions that Mary sent letters for a plot to kill Elizabeth. Is that something you've come across as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
She did. We don't know. We're not 100% sure that those letters were actually fronts, but probably, again, Mary's trying to play the game too.
Yeah.
If she can get on that throne, she's going to do it.
Yeah.
Don't put things in writing.
They'll get intercepted.
That's right.
Well, we are at 5 o'clock. David, I know you have a question about the Civil War. Let's see, curiosity as a okay,
not legally.
So that was very open-ended at the Constitutional Convention because they were afraid to put anything in there solid one way or the other. I don't think most states would have entered into the compact if they didn't think they could get out of it later. But as you point out, we had a civil war that sort of decided the issue extrajudicially.
Yeah.
I think there's actually legislation for Texas to secede.
Well, within the state of Texas.
Within the state of
Texas. I think, and then a constitutional amendment, because when a state enters the Union, it signs up to agree to the Constitution, right? They would therefore say, this amendment hereby dissolves the union between the state of Georgia and the federal government. Then yes, that could amendment to ratify.
Yes.
Well, folks,
especially with everyone leaving.
Yeah.
Right.
We've got to secede, if you know what I mean. I tried.
If at first you don't secede,
Please don't try again. Sorry for all the audio problems, but we also appreciate you hanging in there with us for another fun Tuesday. We have an awesome live stream tomorrow. Maria is going to be hosting a lot, and of course, we always have our digital memberships and our digital membership live streams, and we have a really fun one this Friday. Glenn is going to be presenting on the everyday medieval person, the medieval everyman.
That's right.
So,
in a nutshell. It's in a nutshell series is
yes,
what that is.
Yes. So we hope to see you at today.
Yes, thank you.
All right. We will see you soon. See you in the chat.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.